Chapter 1. The Lure of Hype. Caleb adjusted the camera on his head, his flashlight cutting through the darkness to illuminate the moss-covered walls of the abandoned research institute. The cold night air seeped through the holes in his old jacket, but Caleb noticed neither the discomfort nor the chill. In his eyes burned that same spark that drives people to climb mountains, parachute jump, or infiltrate long-forgotten places whispered about only by the truly insane. The spark of hype. Hey everyone, Caleb here, your favorite urban explorer, and today we're at Huckles. His voice sounded excessively cheerful in the dead silence. The gates of the legendary Research Institute 7. Rumors? Oh, there are so many here you could write a book. I've heard about this place since I was in school, when local old-timers whispered about a bad place and anomalies. But what really hooked me was an anonymous message on my channel a couple of weeks ago. Just a few words. Go to Sector B of Research Institute 7. Something is waiting there. Something you're looking for. Sounds like nonsense? Of course. But I'm here to prove it, or disprove it. Strange sounds, disappearances, and of course the classic. Something lives there, but it's not from here. Hi, honestly, I don't believe in these fairy tales. But who says you can't peek behind the curtain, eh? He squeezed through a hole in the rusty fence, his old boots crunching on broken glass, and moved slowly forward, lighting his way. The building looked like a colossal skeleton, its empty eye socket windows staring straight into one's soul. Every one of Caleb's steps echoed, making his imagination conjure shadows that immediately dissolved, proving to be merely tricks of the light. He commented on every rustle, every piece of rusted equipment, striving to create drama for his audience. But the deeper he plunged into the concrete jungle, around one of the bins, he stumbled upon the first thing that made his skepticism waver. It wasn't just debris. In the middle of the corridor, where all the paint had peeled away, stood a strange installation. Pieces of metal, wires, scraps of fabric, and something organic, resembling the desiccated entrails of some animal, were woven into a bizarre, repulsive construct. It didn't look like graffiti, nor was it the result of vandalism. There was an alien logic to it, a strange methodicalness, as if an artist, unfamiliar with earthly forms, was trying to reproduce something seen far away. What in the world is this? Caleb whispered, his voice having lost its former bravado. He raised his camera to film the artifact, but the screen suddenly flickered, the image distorted by static, and then went completely black for a second. He tapped the casing. What the hell? The battery was full. The sounds around him grew clearer. A distant metallic screech, like a drawn-out moan, echoed through the corridors. And then, as if in response, a dull thud sounded somewhere in the distance, like something heavy had fallen. Caleb flinched. His heart pounded harder, beating a wild rhythm in his ears. It suddenly became clear to him. He wasn't alone. The feeling of being watched was so intense that he spun around, expecting to see a figure in the darkness. But there was only the wall and his own shadow. The thirst for sensation battled with his primal instinct for self-preservation. And for now, hype was winning. Caleb moved deeper, subconsciously seeking the source of these eerie phenomena. He walked through a labyrinth of abandoned labs and offices, piecing together fragments of information in his mind until he reached the central sector, a place where, rumor had it, even the most seasoned urban explorers feared to tread. His flashlight swept across a hermetically sealed door, miraculously intact amidst the general ruin. Chapter 2. The Collection of the Unknown. Caleb's heart hammered like a blacksmith's anvil. The rustling behind the door ceased, leaving only an oppressive silence that rang in his ears. Instinct screamed, "Run!" But the blogger's impulse, that relentless drive for unique content, clung to the hope of witnessing something incredible, something that would explode his channel. He took a deep breath, trying to suppress the wave of nausea caused by the stench, and cautiously pushed the door. It gave way with a horrifying screech, revealing what had once been the main laboratory of Research Institute 7. Caleb's flashlight carved out a surreal tableau from the abyssal darkness. This wasn't merely an abandoned lab, it was a mad sculptor's workshop. Debris of equipment, wires, and flasks were scattered everywhere, but amidst them, on old lab tables and even hanging from the ceiling, were the very installations he had seen earlier. Only here they were larger, more complex, and most importantly, horrifyingly bizarre. In the dim beam of the flashlight, he discerned them. Modified specimens. Silhouettes of animals Caleb could barely identify had been unnaturally transformed, recombined with added metallic parts, incomprehensible mechanisms, glistening tubes, and organic elements whose purpose he couldn't even begin to guess. It was as if someone had tried to improve or reimagine biological species using alien technologies. There were dog-like forms with additional, erratically placed, glistening metallic eyes, and birds whose bones had been replaced by a web of wires, their wings transformed into grotesque, sharp constructs. The repulsive stench here was at its strongest, permeating every molecule of the air. Caleb nearly dropped his camera. His mind desperately clung to familiar explanations. A prank, some madman's performance art. But the cold dread he felt was far too real. He aimed his flashlight further, and the beam landed on something crouched in the far. It slowly lifted its head. The blogger. No footage, no urban legend, no anime could have prepared him for this. Before him was a creature, simultaneously nightmarish and captivating. It sat, clothed in a light, distinctly human-cut shirt, which strangely stretched over its dense, unnaturally rounded body. But its face was the most terrifying. Disproportionately wide, pale, and swollen, it was stretched into a perpetually frozen, unnaturally wide smile, revealing thin, almost invisible lips. Its eyes, deeply sunken black voids, where only occasionally a dull reddish glint flashed, devoid of any human expression. Around its neck and jaw, numerous folds of skin, resembling layers of fat, lent the appearance an even greater repulsive unnaturalness. Short, dark hair was neatly combed back, creating an eerie contrast with its distinctly inhuman nature. It was it, one of the Serpo brothers, as per the old insane theories. It didn't move aggressively, didn't growl. It simply watched. Its deep, bottomless eyes seemed to study Caleb with a cold, alien curiosity, as if he were a new, highly intriguing specimen. Its hands, previously occupied with work on the table, froze, only occasionally twitching with unnatural precision. Movements betraying incredible hidden strength and dexterity. All the rumors, all his skepticism, crumbled in an instant. This was no urban madman, no animal, no figment of a sick imagination. This was something beyond human comprehension, operating by its own monstrous laws. And its workspace, this sinister laboratory, held horrifyingly modified animal forms, and more. One of its eyes slowly blinked. Then the creature emitted a sound. Not a scream, not a growl, but a low, vibrating hum that seemed to penetrate straight into Caleb. Chapter 3. The Cost of the Specimen. Caleb ran. He wasn't just running. He was fleeing in desperate haste through the familiar, yet now deadly corridors. Each of his steps echoed with a dull thud in the darkness, drowned out only by the frantic pounding of his own heart. He stumbled over debris, slipped on the slick floor, but dared not stop. Behind him was not an animal, but something far worse, intelligent, alien, and methodical. That rustling sound he'd heard earlier had now become the constant accompaniment to his flight. It wasn't loud, but its monotony, its rhythm, like a giant spider scuttling on its legs, chilled him to the bone. Through the general clamor of his own body, he distinguished that sound. Scrab, scrab. Sure, sure. Scrab, scrab. The creature was not hurrying. It wasn't chasing him in a frenzy. It was following, and that was far more terrifying. Caleb shot past the installation from the first chapter, barely avoiding crashing into it. Now it seemed not merely eerie, but an ominous warning. He saw the exit. The hole in the fence he'd squeezed through was very close, just a couple of turns away. Hope flared within him, bright, almost painfully so. He was almost free. He rounded a corner and the flashlight on his forehead illuminated a dead end. A solid wall of collapsed concrete. Behind him, the familiar, soul-chilling rustle sounded again, growing louder. Caleb spun desperately, trying to find another way, but the concrete slabs were piled to the ceiling. A trap. He was cornered. The rustling stopped. An absolute silence fell, which was even worse than the pursuit. Caleb didn't dare turn around. His lungs burned and his body trembled. In the air, besides the usual stench, a new, acrid, almost Swedish smell emerged, making his eyes water. Slowly, gritting his teeth, Caleb turned. IT stood a few meters from him. Its many eyes glimmered in the gloom, reflecting the dim beam of his flashlight. The creature raised one of its tentacle-like limbs. There was no claw at its end. Instead, there was a strange, multifaceted instrument, like a crystal, slowly pulsating with a dull bluish light. Caleb froze, trying to comprehend what would happen next. The monster didn't attack. It slowly, methodically approached, like a surgeon walking towards an operating table. The blue light from the instrument began to grow, illuminating Caleb's face, penetrating through his skin, making his muscles clench. He felt something invisible exploring him, delving into every cell, every nerve. Not pain, but a repulsive sensation of an alien presence, cold and analyzing. Don't touch me. Caleb rasped, trying to back away, but the wall behind him offered no retreat. He saw the many eyes of the Serpo brother focus on him, and in them there was neither malice nor hunger, only an all-consuming, bottomless drive for knowledge, for analysis, for collection. The last thing Caleb felt before the world around him blurred and dissolved into a cold blue haze was something like a prick. Not physical, but energetic. In his mind, an alien, voiceless thought resonated, cold and clear as a blade. Specimen acquired, preparing for processing. A haze, a rustle, and darkness. Somewhere far away, on the outskirts of the city, in the abandoned research institute, the sounds of creaking metal and a methodical, barely audible scrab continued to echo in the night silence. Another urban explorer vanished without a trace. No one knew that Caleb had perhaps become not the last specimen in the collection of an intergalactic analyst, whose echo now forever lurked within the walls of the abandoned research. This chapter closes. I thank you for venturing into this tome. If the shadows stirred something within, let it be known. Share your thoughts, like, and subscribe for more locked stories. The darkness always waits.